Hello everybody, this is Ice, and welcome back to what is hopefully the final take for episode 2 of C++ start to finish. So, in this video we're going to get really down into this stuff and actually work on it, so that'll be pretty fun. Now, the first thing we're going to do is get a code block shortcut on our desktop. You should know how to do that. And now, the important part, because this caused me a bit of an issue, and it's easy to fix. So, when we have this shortcut, before we open it, we're going to right-click, not just click open, but click run as administrator. And now we're going to get a little pop-up. You can click yes to that. And that will make sure that code blocks can access all of the directories that we want, because it will make sure that it can access the directories, because currently it's installed in a protected directory, program files, and if we don't give the program permission to access it, then bad things will happen, and it will not let us create a project. But that's fine, we know exactly what the problem is, and now that is fixed. Now you might notice that this program does take a very long time to load, and that's perfectly normal. We will see in just a moment that it is fine. So, when this starts up, I will get back to you. Okay, so this appears to have loaded. Now, you would have seen a few things pop up before this happened. You might have seen a few compilers asking to be set up. That's fine, you can just click yes to that. You might have seen a list of compilers, just click OK. And then you would have seen a little code block symbol like this. That's also fine, just wait it out. So now you can see that code blocks has opened up. And let's take a little tour of the IDE before we make a project. Now, we have a few things we actually care about here. We're not going to worry about the logs today. So the first thing up here is this top bar. It's easy enough. I mean, it's just all the basic menus. Over here we have the Project Explorer. Now you'll kind of see how this works in a bit more detail later on. And here we have the main IDE. So without further ado, let's get into actually making a project. So, as you might guess, you're going to create a new project. And now we get all of these options. Which one is the right one? Well, technically they're all right, but trust me, we want an empty project. The console application has already set up a lot of the things that I want to teach you, so that's no good. We're going to click Go, and this is going to be our project tutorial 2, since it's the second tutorial. Easy enough. Now you're going to hit Next. We don't need a debug configuration. I think we understand this well enough. This compiler is fine, and now we are going to hit Finish. And now we are going to get a gray screen, which is very exciting as always. So let's actually get started and make something, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we need a file. Now we can come up here for a file and click New File. We're going to come down here and say File. And since we're making a C++ program, we want to say C/C++ source file. So now we're going to double click on that and click Next. Click Next again because we do want C++. And now what you're going to do is come down here, Add File to Active Project, and then check off Release here. Now, we're going to come down here and click this button. Now we should be inside our tutorial 2 file. Type in main.cpp, because that's the file extension for C++. Hit Save, and you should see that this path appears. That's exactly what we wanted. And now we can hit Finish, and our main.cpp file is inside our project, ready to be built. Now, you're looking at this empty white space here. What is this all for? Well, this is where we're actually going to be writing our program. Okay, so I have collected my thoughts, and we are now going to write our first C++ Hello World program. So, the first thing we're going to do is we need a using statement. Now, we're going to talk about what this all means afterwards, so just bear with me for a second. We're going to type using namespace, std, semicolon. The semicolon is very important. And basically, this is going to say, well, we'll see a bit more. It'll make a bit more sense once we have the whole program. Now we need to come down and make our main method. So the main method is basically the method where everything starts. C++ programs are made up entirely of these methods, and the main one is simply the one that gets run at the very beginning of the program. Now we can define this with int main, then some parentheses. Then we're going to create curly braces. You can move this one down a little bit if you want. And now we have this bit of programming here. Now, we're going to talk about this all in a bit more detail in just a bit. Basically, int main. Int stands for integer, which means main, or number, which means main is just going to give us a number. Now, the number that main returns is simply, well, whether the program worked. 0 means the program worked, 1 means it might have had issues. So, we're going to come in here and we're going to type our first line of code. We're going to type COUT, which is cout. This is the command to print. And now we're going to create two little arrows, like this. Make sure they're facing this way. Then we're going to create some quotation marks, and this is what you want to print out to the console. So I'm just going to say hello world, just like that. Two more arrows like this, and then end L, semicolon. Now you're going to come down here and hit return 0, and this is just going to tell it that it worked fine. So now that we have this entire program ready, let's actually figure out what it all does. Using namespace std. std is the namespace that contains all of the basic C++ input and output stuff. It contains what allows us to print to the console, to get input from the console, and all that stuff. It's called a namespace because basically it has a bunch of methods that we can call, like cout. Now, cout is, it's a basic printing function that comes with std. Now, if we didn't have this line here, if we just commented out, then we would have to put std : cout. Now, this is namespace referencing, so it's a bit more complex. We'll get into it in a little bit. But for now, just know that this allows us to use functions from this namespace. Alright, so now int main. Int main, well, the int we've already talked about. It just means integer. Main defines it as the main method that C++ will start the program on. And these parentheses are the arguments. Now, we're not going to talk about arguments in this video because that's a more complex concept, but just know that our arguments are stored here. Now, we have these two curly braces here, and code blocks give us the nice feature of highlighting them. And this just tells us where the method starts, here, and where it ends, here. Easy enough, and always save your work. So now, this cout statement. The first part is cout. This just tells it that we're going to be printing something. These two arrows are beginning to tell us what we want to print. Then in here we have the string hello world in quotation marks. Now a string is just anything that's just a bunch of characters, letters or numbers or punctuation, and we have that here. Now when we define strings in C++, we put them inside quotation marks, and you'll find that with a lot of languages too. And yeah, there's that. Now we have two more arrows, which will tell us the next thing to print out, and then this endl thing here. Now, endl simply means end the line and go on to the next line, and then a semicolon. These semicolons are very important because they tell C++ where we've stopped doing one line of code and where it starts the next one. So now down here we have return 0, which will simply say this method will return a 0, which will mean it works fine. So now we are ready to actually run this or build it. So you're going to come up here and click on this yellow gear, and that is strange. I think I know what the problem is. Yes, I'm sorry. So we're going to come up here and we're going to say pound include, and then in like HTML tags, iostream.h, just like this. And this just means it's going to set up our iostream.h. Now, this basically means the iostream.h file contains all of these basic methods, so that's kind of important to have. Basically, it will allow us to use cout just like this std. So now we can go over here and click on this gear. We can hit build. And I'm sorry we don't have a .h on this. I'm a bit rusty, but you'll see that this works fine now. Forget the .h on here. And now, if we hit the gear, we get another error. What is this all about? Let's see. Oh, whoa. No, we didn't want that. That is very strange. What if we put std here? Like that? Will that work? No match for operator. Perhaps the arrows go the other way? I'm sorry, I'm a bit derpy here right now. And now, after all that it has worked, I derped out a little bit on that, probably more than you did, but you'll see that this is now built. And there we go. Now, what's funny is that we don't actually need these STDs here. It doesn't matter. but you can rebuild that, recompile it if you want. You'll see that it still works because of our using namespace call here. Now, you always need to remember which way your arrows go, and I always forget that. It's not just something I don't know, it's something that I always forget, so there you go. Just remember that for C out, the arrows point to the left, and for C in, they point to the right. Always remember that, because it's fairly important. Also, you have to remember this include statement, this IOStream, because this is good, and apparently C++ doesn't like .h. So now that we've built this, we are ready to run it. And as you can see at last, after a little bit of derpage here, we will see that it has printed hello, comma, world to the screen. And just like that, we have made a program. Now we could, just to show you that this is actually the hello world that we've written here, I'm going to change this to, how are you? How are you today? Like that. And if we rebuild this, before you run something, you always have to rebuild it. Like so. Now we're going to hit run, and you'll see that it prints out that too. And just like that, we have made a very basic C++ program. Very easy to use, and, there we go. Sorry about the little bit of derp in that video. In the next one, we're going to begin talking about some more complex stuff like variables and numbers. But that's about what I have for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and as always, well, bye now.